In May 2006, in Baltimore, Maryland, a man vanished without explanation. Rey Rivera, a 32-year-old writer, suddenly left his home after receiving a phone call. Within minutes, he was gone, leaving behind his wife and no clear destination. Days later, his car was found parked near a historic hotel in the city, but there was no record of him entering the building. Nearly a week later, his body was discovered in a conference room below. He had fallen through the roof from a height that investigators struggled to explain. The access to that rooftop was locked and not easily reachable. Inside his home, police found a strange, cryptic note taped behind his computer. The message contained references that made little sense to investigators. To this day, no one can fully explain how Rey Rivera reached that roof or why.
Rey Rivera was a 32-year-old writer living in Baltimore, Maryland. He had recently moved there with his wife, Allison Rivera. The move was driven by a job opportunity connected to his longtime friend. That friend, Porter Stansberry, ran a financial publishing company. Rey had agreed to work as a video producer and writer for the business. Before this, he had pursued a career in screenwriting in Los Angeles. Friends described him as ambitious, creative, and physically active. He maintained a disciplined lifestyle and exercised regularly. Rey was also known for his interest in films, writing, and storytelling. Despite leaving Los Angeles, he still hoped to return to filmmaking one day. His relationship with his wife was described as stable and supportive. They had recently married and were building a new life together. Their home in Baltimore was in a quiet residential neighborhood. Nothing in his recent behavior suggested distress or instability. However, there were small details that would later draw attention. Rey had recently expressed concern about personal safety. He had installed an alarm system in the house. On at least one occasion, the alarm had been triggered unexpectedly. These incidents were never fully explained at the time. To those around him, life appeared normal on the surface. There were no clear signs that anything was about to go wrong. On the evening of May 16, 2006, Rey Rivera was at home with his wife. Allison Rivera had just returned from a business trip earlier that day. The evening appeared normal, with no indication of urgency. Rey was working in his home office at the time. At approximately 6:30 p.m., the phone rang. Rey answered a call that appeared to come through the switchboard of his workplace. The exact source of the call was never fully confirmed. Witnesses later noted that his reaction was immediate and unusual. He quickly stood up and moved with urgency. Without explaining where he was going, he rushed out of the house. Rey Rivera, 32-year-old male, medium build, short, dark hair, clean-shaven face, wearing casual t-shirt and jeans, left abruptly, without taking essential items. He did not take his phone charger or prepare for a long outing. He exited in a manner described as sudden and focused. Allison would later state that this behavior was out of character. There was no sign of distress or argument before he left. The call itself was never recovered in full detail. Records showed it came from a company switchboard, but no individual was identified. This detail would later become central to the investigation. After leaving, Rey Rivera was not seen returning home. No confirmed sightings placed him elsewhere that evening. From that moment forward, his movements became unknown. After leaving his home, Rey Rivera drove toward downtown Baltimore. The exact route he took was never fully reconstructed. There were no confirmed sightings of him during this time. At some point, His vehicle arrived near the Belvedere Hotel. The Belvedere was a historic building with residential and commercial spaces. It was not unusual for people to pass through the area. However, there was no clear reason for Rey to be there. Security cameras in the area did not clearly capture his arrival. His car was later found parked in a nearby lot. The position of the vehicle suggested a deliberate stop. There were no signs of forced entry inside the car. Personal items were left behind, including belongings of no immediate concern. This indicated that he had not planned for an extended absence. Inside the Belvedere, no staff reported seeing him enter. There were multiple access points to the building. Some of these areas were not consistently monitored. The rooftop access was restricted and not easily available to the public. Investigators later questioned how he could have reached that location. There were no clear witnesses placing him inside the building. No footage confirmed his movement through interior spaces. From this point forward, the sequence of events became increasingly unclear.
6 days after Rey Rivera disappeared, a discovery was made at the Belvedere Hotel. Maintenance workers noticed damage to a lower roof structure. There was a hole in the roof of a conference room below. The damage appeared consistent with a high-impact fall. Authorities were called to investigate the scene. Inside the conference room, Rey Rivera's body was found. He was positioned beneath the opening in the ceiling. The condition of the scene raised immediate questions. The height from which he would have fallen was significant. Investigators examined whether the fall could have originated from the main rooftop. However, the distance and angle made this difficult to explain. Some calculations suggested that a running jump would be required. Even then, the trajectory remained uncertain. There were no clear signs showing how he accessed the roof. The rooftop doors were typically locked or restricted. No witnesses reported seeing him on the upper levels. The physical evidence did not fully match a straightforward fall. Personal items, including his phone and glasses, were later recovered. These items showed minimal damage despite the fall. This detail added further complexity to the investigation. From the moment of discovery, the case shifted from missing person to unexplained death. Following the discovery, investigators began reconstructing Rey Rivera's final movements. The timeline between his departure and discovery remained incomplete. Police focused on how he could have accessed the rooftop. The Belvedere Hotel had multiple levels with restricted access points. Rooftop entry was not open to the public under normal conditions. Investigators examined stairwells, elevators, and internal pathways. None provided a clear explanation for how he reached the top. Attention then shifted to the phone call that preceded his departure. Records confirmed the call originated from his workplace switchboard. However, the company was unable to identify the exact caller. This detail raised questions about who contacted Rey that evening. Investigators attempted to trace the call through internal logs. The records did not provide a specific extension or individual. Shortly after his death, the company issued a statement. Employees were advised not to speak publicly about the case. This directive limited the flow of potential information. Police also reviewed Rey's digital activity and communications. There were no clear threats or messages indicating immediate danger. Financial records showed no unusual transactions. His personal life appeared stable with no evident conflict. Despite ongoing investigation, Key questions remained unanswered. As the investigation continued, multiple theories began to emerge. One possibility considered was that Rey Rivera had fallen accidentally. However, the distance and angle of the fall made this difficult to support. Another theory suggested a deliberate jump from the rooftop. This raised further questions about how he accessed the area. The locked doors and restricted entry points remained unexplained. Some investigators examined whether an alternate access route existed. This included adjacent structures and less monitored entry points. No clear path was confirmed through these possibilities. Attention also returned to the cryptic note found in his home. The note contained references to films, names, and unusual phrasing. Its meaning was not immediately understood by investigators. Some interpreted it as personal or creative writing. Others considered whether it indicated a state of mind or intention. The note's placement behind the computer added to its significance. It appeared to have been intentionally hidden from casual view. Despite analysis, no definitive conclusion was reached about its purpose. The combination of physical evidence and written material remained inconsistent. Each theory introduced new questions rather than clear answers. No single explanation fully accounted for all aspects of the case. The investigation remained open, with uncertainty at its core. Rey Rivera's death was ultimately classified as undetermined by medical examiners. This classification reflected the lack of a clear and consistent explanation. The physical evidence did not fully align with a confirmed accident or suicide. Investigators were unable to establish a definitive sequence of events. The unanswered questions continued to shape the case. How he reached the rooftop remained unresolved. The origin of the phone call was never identified. The cryptic note offered no clear interpretation. No witnesses came forward with decisive information. Over time, the case received wider public attention. It was later featured in investigative media and documentaries. New interest brought renewed analysis, but no confirmed answers. Some independent investigators proposed alternative explanations. These ranged from misadventure to more complex scenarios. However, none could be verified through available evidence. The lack of clarity has kept the case open to interpretation. For his family, the uncertainty has remained ongoing. They continue to seek answers about his final moments. The case remains one of Baltimore's most puzzling investigations. It stands as an example of how key details can remain unresolved. More than a decade later, the central question still remains unanswered.